Hello guys, my name is Kevin and welcome to this new video called the most underestimated tanks, in which obviously I'll talk about the tanks that are heavily underplayed compared to their possibilities or capabilities, because either YouTubers demonize them or players simply dislike them because of them already being unpopular. While in fact they are really powerful, just not played that much. So yeah, if I'll say that some of the tanks are really powerful, I may seem like overestimating, but nah. I just mean that the tank is heavily underplayed considering how powerful it actually is. Either way, enough blabbling around and let's get into the actual list, starting off with the STB-1. This tier 10 Japanese medium was previously considered as one of the most powerful tanks in a game. This obviously led to a chain of nerfs resulting in a really weak tank. Or is it weak? Not at all. It may be weaker than before, however the tank is still rather deadly. First of all, it has absolutely murderous damage per minute of 3000, which is on par with the Object 430, which if you don't know is remembered for its high DPM. But compared to the Object 430, you get higher alpha, meaning that if you manage to trade shot for shot with the 430, you will always win. As well, unlike the 430, you get an awesome gun depression of 10 degrees over the whole front of your tank, allowing you to be that much more agile. You can shoot the enemy, making yourself useful while still remaining in rather safe spot. There is only one other medium tank at tier 10 having the same kind of privilege, and that is the Century Action X, which is all around worse. The armor of this tank is nothing especially awesome, however it's mostly angled at outer ricochet angle, which allows you to bounce more than half the incoming shells. Well, unless the enemy actually knows where to aim. But this war of tanks, nobody knows that kind of information. Now don't be afraid to side scrape because the STB's side armor is exactly 35mm thick, meaning that you can side scrape against any other medium tank quite reliably. However, be warned, your armor is close to being useless against any heavy tank you might meet. Crushing majority of it will be overmatched, including your side armor, and really the only place where you might bounce something is the upper part of your turret, which is kind of small. However, you aren't supposed to fight heavies. You're supposed to flank them and outplay them using your superior mobility. While this tank has a plenty of horsepower to time ratio, it has horrific ground resistances, making this tank probably as fast as most of the other mediums. Overall, this tank is about the average of mediums and truly powerful, at least now. However, its previously, in my opinion, required nerf chain made it unappealing in most of the skilled players' eyes. Second thing on this list is gonna be the Tortoise. Well, the entire British TD3, but especially the Tortoise, since this tank is known as the highest DPS tank in a game. And I'm really surprised that nearly no one plays it. Like, what the hell? This tank has over 3500 damage per minute, which is just flat out insane. Mainly if you realize that it is a tier 9, not a tier 10 tank. With this DPM and your 2000 hit points, you can pretty much roll into phase of pretty much any tank you want and come out victorious with a plenty of health left. But many of the tanks with such an insane DPM are restricted purely to melee range combat due to low accuracy, and Tortoise is not one of them. This calm as shielded lizard has both great aiming time of less than 2 seconds and sub 0.3 gun dispersion. This means that it is as well a rather decent sniping gun. Yeah, the dispersion from moving is horrible, but who gives a damn about that? Once you get moving, it is a rare occasion because you probably saw something close by and you just want to well closer to it because it's, let's say, behind a hill. As well, while we are talking about the gun, I should mention that the Tortoise has really large gun arc of 20 degrees to each side. This is really rare amongst all non-turreted TDs, which practically always have a gun arc of only up to 10 degrees. Next up, this thing has kinda mediocre armor. While it can hold most, if not all, tier 7 and 8 guns, it fails horribly against tier 9s and 10s. Still though, the armor is really big and really thick, and since Brits did not save any weight on the sides and rear of the tank, it is as well really heavy, which makes this tank really slow. But surprisingly enough, its power to weight ratio is still not lower than 10. But to make this thing at least kind of balanced, we all know the Wargaming's balance system, it has a horrific ground resistances, making it challenging to even get up to its top speed of 20 km per hour. This is well possibly the reason why this tank is not that popular. But no matter what, it is a really fun tank to play. You just can't fuck up anything with it. Just press down your W button and hold left click. That's it, done. The third thing on this list has got to be the mighty Jingle's favorite, the M3 Lee. Now, this tank is pretty much the same thing as the Tortoise, except that it can move faster than Shrek guarding his fam. Firstly, it has a deadly DPM for tier 4 tank with a rather decent penetration. Not groundbreaking, but definitely better than majority. The accuracy may seem meh, but for tier 4 is more of an achievement than a disadvantage. And last thing about the gun is gonna be the rather sizable gun arc of 15 degrees to each side, which again is better than a majority of non-turreted TDs. If it comes to the armor, this tank is again kinda like the Tortoise. Most if not all lower tier shells will bounce over your frontal plate, while the tier 4s will quite easily go through. Well, as long as they get over 60 penetration and you decide to not to work those bridge lines. However, compared to the Tortoise, you may get to face tanks that might be up to 2 tiers higher, meaning that you will end up as a chew toy for them. But to make up for it, you will get rather decent mobility. Yeah, it isn't all that awesome, but it certainly helps quite a lot. Overall, this tank, since on lower tiers the only thing that matters is the gun, is really powerful. Solo, its gun would be great even on a tier 5 tank. The DPS, the penetration, the accuracy, everything is great. But it has one major disadvantage, and that is the limited gun arc as a medium tank. It is one of only 2 non-TD tanks without a turret if I am correct. Well, yeah, it has a turret with 37 caliber gun, which would definitely be at least kind of mediocre, but you can't use it because World of Tanks. So most of the people simply skip the grind thinking the tank is useless, while, well, it is not. We are getting to the end of this video with another underplayed tank, or tank tree to be exact. And that is gonna be the Chinese heavy tank tree, mainly the 113. Now, I never understood why nobody plays these tanks. Like, for example, I like them so much that 113 was my second tier 10 tank. As well, these tanks combine that awesome zero skill requiring Russian armor with the heavy but hard to play German boxy armor, which means that it has a really well angled armor which by itself can bounce quite a few shots. And at the same time, you don't have that annoying frontal peak. So you can effectively angle and side scrape, giving you that much more feeling of control over your armor. If that alone wasn't enough to make this tank look good to you, it is a great gun as well, with the second highest DPM out of all quote-unquote real heavy tanks at a tier 10. Yes, I'm not counting the T-57 as a real heavy tank despite it literally being in its name, because that tank is more of a medium than a heavy. It's like saying that the FCM-50T is a heavy. Yeah, theoretically it is a heavy tank, but in game it behaves entirely like a medium. In this case, not only with the mobility, but as well with the DPM. But now back to the 130. For its high DPM, it can thank to its high alpha damage of 440 and a good rate of fire of 6 shots per minute. With this, you can outrate most of the mediums trying to engage on you. However, if you meet any of the German heavies, run. Your alpha damage is lower than theirs and you will die after trading just a few shots. Lastly, as all of the Chinese tanks, this one as well copies some of the Russian design features, such as in this case the low profile, or the classical tactic at the start of the game. The low profile allows this tank to stay hidden while firing thanks to increased camo values, and the lower height of the tank lowered the weight of the tank, making it faster. For example, the 113 moves at nearly the same speed as most of the mediums, so yeah, the speed is definitely rather decent, at least for a heavy. All around, this tank is an absolute beast nowadays. Previously, yeah, it wasn't all that powerful since it had lower DPM, lower armor that was actually worse than the one on T62A, and it was slower than the IS-7, but now it's mother flippin' awesome. Enemies will always look at you as if you were some generic Russian heavy with shit DPM, but then you shove a shell after shell into them and they'll know who's the daddy. And the last thing on this list, and in my opinion the most underestimated tank in the game, is gonna be the meme itself, the submarine, the almighty TOG II. You were calling him names for all those years, but now it's his turn to call you names. Just kidding, this would ruin the fun. The TOG II, since ever, was in a potato division of tanks for I don't know what reason. Firstly, its gun is pretty much the same as the one on Cromwell, except that this schlong has better accuracy, penetration and alpha, while having a little bit lower DPM. Still though, when fighting with it, especially with some long reloading tanks, it will feel like it has no reload at all. Well, actually, while we are at it, 4 seconds is a really short reload, especially for a tank of TOG size. Other than that, TOG's gun has 10 degrees of gun depression, not that you are ever going to use it with this mobility, but still better than Cromwell's 8 8 degrees. All around, the gun is still pretty amazing and definitely better than the one on the Cromwell. Oh, and I almost forgot, it's the same gun as the one on the Black Prince. The armor of this thing is, well, crap. It's rather thick but horribly angled. If you have ever thought that the Germans have got squishy tanks thanks to their 0-degree angling, this tank is like a next level of that. Literally, only way you will block anything is by facing either 2 tiers lower tanks or by auto-ricocheting of your side armor while side scraping. But hey, at least you won't get penetrated by high explosive shells like the other crappy armor heavies. But you aren't even supposed to work with your armor with this thing, because it has 1600 hit points. This amount of hit points would be alright even for tier 8 heavy, and on a tier 6 that amount of hit points makes you a Goliath that needs to be overrun by at least 4 enemies. Lastly, mobility. Hey, you think that a submarine will move fast? This thing literally had to be a submarine, and now it moves on the land. In other words, since the T-95 was buffed, the TOG II is the slowest tank in the game. It not only has sub 10 horsepower to ton ratio, but it has sub 7.5 horsepower to ton ratio. This shit is like a hot dog lying on the street. It won't fucking move unless somebody kicks it. Oh wait, it has 80 tons. Try kicking that shit. With this speed, you won't ever get anywhere quickly. And even if you get somewhere, the fight has ended 3 minutes ago. However, this is actually what makes this tank so good. Yeah, sometimes you won't even get to fight in the entire game, and the game will end without you being capable of landing a single hit on the enemy. But if anything goes wrong, you are like the last stand indestructible defense of your team. Imagine being the enemy team against the hot TOG. You kill the entire flank and you are happily pushing onwards, and suddenly, voila, whole bunch of croissant. A wild TOG, well, not so wild, shows up and has more HPs than all of the tanks you have just defeated combined. Now to only realize that you did not beat the entire flank because the TOG II is the entire flank. Welcome to the final stage, time to defeat the final boss. Good luck. No, really, this tank won't ever meet any tier 8 tanks, and against any lower tier opponent it is just a pure carnage. Either way, this is gonna be the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, give it a like. If you did not, please give it a dislike because I wanna know whether or not I should improve. If you already gave it a dislike, please comment down below about what you disliked about the video so I can change it in the future. Either way, hope you enjoyed, and I hope that I'll see you next time. Bye.